Although it doesn't look like it right now, for what it's worth, my garden can get its share of color. Certain times of the year, with certain crops, I'll get colors other than green that let me know how I'm doing as a grower. But that palette is limited to short windows of fertilization and even shorter windows of harvest. Sometimes a garden needs a little splash of color outside of those traditional food crops. Aesthetics, elegant soil covers, and of course, attracting pollinators. I'm talking about bulbs. Literally, the easiest way to grow the most impressive flowers for your garden. Just like growing your own garlic, planting bulbs is a long game. There's 2 types to plant and grow, all based on when you want them to sprout and bloom. Right now it's fall, so we're going to be planting our spring bulbs. If you've ever wanted to inject some color into your garden in the most spectacular way possible, planting your spring bulbs in the fall, right before that winter frost, is the easiest way to do it. Whenever you plant flower bulbs, it's done for the future. Like we said, these guys are all about the long game. You're never going to get an immediate pop of color, no matter which variety you choose. And although there's literally thousands of varieties to choose from, they all fall into 2 main types of bulbs. And to add to the confusion, bulb types are named for when they bloom, not when you plant them. On the one hand, we have spring bulbs, which are actually planted in the fall. And on the other, we have summer bulbs, which you actually plant in the spring. Today, because it's fall, we're going to be planting our spring bulbs. These are going to be things like your alliums, crocuses, daffodils, irises, and of course, these tulips. Summer bulbs are planted in the spring, and they're grown much like our summer vegetable crops. They're not very tolerant to the cold at all. Spring bulbs, however, well, they actually require it. Spring bulbs are super hardy perennials, and they're planted right before or during that first fall frost. Obviously, the ground can't be completely frozen when you're trying to dig these guys in, but a couple of overnight frosts is perfect timing to be planting your spring bulbs. And it's this timing which is critical to our success. Planted too early, and the bulbs could sprout before winter, which is basically a death sentence. Planted too late, however, and the bulbs won't root and establish themselves before the cold, suffering the same result. I've always planted my spring bulbs right around my first fall frost date, which for me is in November. Now, I do live in the Pacific Northwest in Zone 9, and winters here, well, they tend to ease themselves in. You might live in an area where your winters are harsher and come on a lot faster. So, aim for planting your spring bulbs right around your first fall frost or just before, and you'll be good. Spring bulbs, such as these large tulip ones here, are planted pointy end up. They kind of look like large garlic cloves, and it's fairly easy to see which end the shoots come from and which end the roots pop out of. For depth though, these guys are unlike any of our other crops. Spring bulbs are planted really deep. The rule of thumb for spring bulb planting depth is 3 to 4 inches times the size of the bulb. And with some of these bulbs exceeding 2 inches, that means that you could be planting at a depth of up to 8 inches. I have about 240 tulip bulbs that I'm going to be planting today. I've actually gone ahead and measured each and every one for an average of about 1.5 inches. So I'm going to be planting a lot of them 6 inches deep. I know it does seem a bit extreme, but don't worry. Spring bulbs are highly vigorous. Stick to the 3 to 4 times the size of the bulb rule, and you'll always have success. For spacing, I always give the bulbs 2 to 3 times their own width apart from each other. Again, for the big bulbs like these tulips, that's going to be about 4 inches apart. For aesthetics though, bulbs are rarely grown singly or even in long rows. Grow them in groups of 6 to 12 plants for the greatest effect. Now, for actual planting, you can either dig one big large hole, place the bulbs in, spacing them accordingly, or you could dig single individual smaller holes. I prefer to dig the smaller holes as it's infinitely less soil disturbance. In a square foot of garden space, for these large tulip bulbs, I'm going to get about 6 of them. When I do fill back in the holes, I tend to do so with some fresh potting mix. The bulbs definitely don't need any fertilizer at this time, but the fresh, loose soil makes it easier for the roots to get established, and the new soil goodness is going to be there when those bulbs finally sprout in the spring. For location, flowering bulbs really do need full sun to look their best. 6 to 8 hours a day of direct sunlight is usually the minimum. As well, and this can't be stressed enough, all flowering bulbs need excellent drainage. Most varieties of spring bulbs are going to perform extremely poorly in soggy conditions, so make sure that the water drains freely. As we're planting our spring bulbs right before winter, right before they go dormant, our bulbs don't need any fertilizer at this time. In fact, they're not going to need an extra boost from us for about 3 to 4 months, at least not until they sprout in the spring. Same with watering. We're likely planting the bulbs at the wettest time of the year, so don't worry too much about watering. If, however, you live in an area where your soil is particularly dry, for whatever reason, you can give them a good soaking at planting time. It certainly won't hurt. Once you've backfilled all the holes and planted all those spring bulbs, mulching is highly recommended, especially if you get really cold winters. A few inches of leaf litter or even some clean straw will work wonders. It's not only going to help with the temperature extremes, it's also going to help with excessive rains as well, preventing erosion and stopping those bulbs from literally washing away. But what if you're short on space? Or hey, maybe you've only got a patio to grow on. Don't stress. Spring bulbs are excellent container growers. Nothing really changes here. All the same spacing and depth rules apply. Do try to go for a minimum of 5-gallon pot size, as you want to be able to get at least 6 bulbs in. Not only that, the larger container size is going to give you more thermal mass, allowing those bulbs to survive a much harsher winter. Mix and match your favorite colors, and container spring bulb growing can yield some spectacular results. Potting the bulbs up here is super easy, because we don't even need to dig any holes. Simply fill up your container halfway, roughly 7 to 8 inches from the top, space the bulbs accordingly, pointy side up, and fill back in with soil to the desired depth of the variety of bulb. Mulch just like we normally would with 1 to 2 inches of leaves or straw, and give them a good soaking if the soil is dry. Containers are inherently exposed on all sides. They're going to need protection. So, if you live in a zone that gets particularly harsh winters, well, give these guys a little bit more protection. Okay, that was a pretty good dive into the world of spring bulb planting. Let's recap those main points to make sure we got it all. Most flower bulbs fall into 2 general categories, spring and summer. And these categories designate when the flowers bloom, not when you plant them. Spring bulbs are actually planted in the fall, as they require a winter chilling period to set the flowering process in motion. Whenever you're planting spring bulbs, the depth and spacing is dictated entirely by the bulb size itself. Plant them 3 to 4 times as deep as the height of the bulb, and 2 to 3 times away from the next bulb based on their girth. Watering and fertilizing are usually not necessary when the bulbs are first planted, as they're going to be dormant for up to 5 months. Planting spring bulbs is like wrapping a present that you give to yourself in 5 to 6 months. It does take some patience, yes, but the dazzling array of colors that you're going to be welcome with next spring is more than worth the wait. Hey, thanks so much for watching, guys. I appreciate the support more than you know. And if you're getting value from these videos, please like and share them to spread the word and help your fellow gardener to grow better.